Hello, my name is Al Graham, and you're with People Advocating Cannabis Education. It's about promoting the benefits of cannabis, which we do through educational documentaries and public education. Today we are at the Carpe Diem Cafe in Peterborough, and I'd like to introduce to you Amy Brown, a cannabis advocate who will talk to us about advocating ways or alternative ways of using cannabis without smoking. Hello, Amy. How are you?
I'm fabulous. How you doing?
Good. Good. Now, Amy, can you tell us a bit about yourself, such as your hobbies or education or anything like that?
Well, education. I have a high school diploma. I actually never went to college. I got into the veterinary industry, and then I got into a really bad car accident, and then I got into the cannabis industry. So I kind of just, I'm a very settled person. I like what I do.
Okay.
Um, hobbies. I like to bake. I mean, honestly, my biggest hobby is probably baking. Um, and I enjoy baking. I enjoy everything cannabis, like educating. It's my hobbies is kind of my work and it's passion. So I guess I can't really
So
differentiate the
your
two.
your
Same thing.
hobby is your work, is your love of your life.
It is. It's very fulfilling. I couldn't ask for a better job or hobby, I guess you would say. I'm very pleased with what I do now. I work for a
Yeah.
dispensary named Cannabis As Living Medicine. I do admission, so I introduce new members to cannabis. A lot of them have actually never even used it. Any of them don't smoke. So I get the pleasure of teaching new cannabis users how to use it and the different options you
It's a
have
bit of
to
a
use it.
different kind of job, isn't it?
A little crazy, yeah, a lot of wackiness, but honestly, it's probably the most rewarding
Yeah. So
thing I've
how does
ever
somebody
done.
become a
Work
client or
wise.
join COM?
Well, to become a member of CALM, someone will need a letter of diagnosis filled out from their doctor. They can be found on our website. You can Google CALM. But now there's going to be changes in our program, so it will be, as opposed to a letter of diagnosis, it's going to be a prescription. It's going to be that way straight across the board for most dispensaries slash licensed
Yeah.
producers. Soon
Yeah.
they're going to become.
Clinics and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So does
Yeah.
COM
Yeah.
offer anything like mail delivery, phone ordering, anything like that?
Actually, CALM does offer a mail order for licensed members. You would need to have a license in order to qualify for mail order. But there's many people who don't live anywhere near dispensaries, so mail order is a must in the medicinal industry. It's not
Right.
like you get it in a
Right.
pharmacy, right?
What kind of services does supply or does offer, such as the bakery, dispensaries, like applications, anything like that? Cultivation support.
Yeah, well, obviously we have a variety of services we have available. For people who are applying for their license, most people have never seen these papers in their life. I help them out. I help them fill them out, make sure they're correct, figure out which forms they need. We have a peer mentoring. I mean, working with the general public and people from all forms of life, you do meet people who need peer
Right.
support. They have no idea what they're doing. Some are really lost in life. So that happens a lot. I mean, we offer advice on medicine and medicating. We're not doctors, but we are very familiar with cannabis as medicine. So, I mean, we have all-around assistance with anything that has to do with this. You need it, we can help you
That's
with it. If
good.
we
That's
can't, we'll
good.
direct you to someone who
So
can.
today we're going to talk about some of the non-smoking ways of using cannabis, because we can't expect everybody, who doesn't smoke to all of a sudden start smoking, right?
I
That's right.
agree. I meet
So
those people
I've got a
daily.
few here things to start on. Let's start with butter with two T's, in the way of cooking with butter.
Butter.
Um, how's it made?
Well, there's a couple of different methods of making canna butter. I use one particularly, but everybody has their own. Some people like to leave it warming up for 24 hours, 48. But let's start with the basics. What you need to make butter is butter and cannabis. Some people use straight bud. Some people use very close trim. Others use what they've left out of their joints. But how I like to make it is I use 60 grams of cannabis per pound of butter. Um, if I'm making a double dose butter, I'll use 120 grams per pound of butter. What you would do I use the biggest pot I can find, like a huge crock pot. I find the more water you use, the less you're going to taste the chlorophyll in the butter itself. And you just warm it up. Don't boil it. You can boil off. You can burn off a lot of distillate components that you want. So I like to keep mine on the stove for 8 to 9 hours on the lowest possible setting. As long as it's warm, I don't have an issue with it. I've never had a problem. And after that amount of time, I squeeze it out. And how I do that, I work in very bulk form. If you're working in a smaller setting, you know, a cup or two, then you use a cheesecloth and a rice strainer. For me, I have to use a huge colander, a cheesecloth, and I tie it in knots, and then you have to pound the crud out of it. Unfortunately, all the butter sticks to the plant matter, and I got really weak wrists, but most of the butter will stick to it, so you have got to squeeze out the remainder of the butter from the cheesecloth because you're going to waste so much medicine. But as I said, some people will leave butter sitting for 24 hours and say, oh, it's the most potent, it's gone for 40. I really think after 6 to 9 hours, you're not really getting much more out of it. There is another method where people use a double boiler and not use water at all, put the cannabis directly in the butter, strain it or not strain it. I find that leaving cannabis plant matter in the product, first off, makes the butter go more faster, so it decreases the shelf life. I also find with any kind of stomach issues, IBS, Crohn's, even HIV, they find that they tend to upset their stomach when they eat with plant matter. It's very fibrous, and for some reason, it's very upsetting.
How long will that last in
I personally strain it out.
refrigerator? How long will it last in the refrigerator?
I wouldn't leave it in the refrigerator for longer than a week.
You use it up
Some
right
people
away
do
then?
for 2 weeks. I'm really picky. It's a medicine. I do. I work in pounds when I make butter. I go through that very quickly, and it has to be used up immediately. I don't freeze it. You can freeze it if you're not going to use it. You really should freeze it. You could have just wasted a lot of medicine, especially if the plant matter is left in it. Even water, if you don't strain it correctly and there's still some water left, that will upset the butter and make it go
some
moldy
good advice
quicker
and
too.
stuff
And
there I
that's a
haven't
lot of
really
money to be
heard.
throwing away and a lot of pain
I've
relief.
seen people put it in the containers and freeze it, but yeah, no one really, you know, as far as laying how long it can stay. Now, what about when you're cooking with it? Is there any temperature settings that you seem to favor more than others?
You know, most people say don't go over 300 degrees, and I do every single time. I have never been under 300 degrees. That's generally what the rule of thumb is. Cannabis, I bake everything at 315 degrees. I find it works. I have not had an issue with it. Scientifically speaking, it may be wrong, but in actual practice, I've never had a problem with it. I find baking edibles at a lower temperature takes a lot longer, and I just don't trust cooking eggs at a lower temperature for a long period of time. To me, it just, and most cookies or baked products have an egg in there or some kind of milk product. So for me, I 315 has worked. I don't recommend going up to 400. Really, I don't think you're gonna.
Down there, right?
I think you're gonna lose a
Some people
lot.
can
But
find
315 for me, it is recommended
cholesterol.
300
You got
or under
anything
though.
along that line that they could
Definitely.
switch out instead of butter? Honey?
Use honey. Well, there's lots of different. Yeah, a medicated honey is a great way. For those who haven't made medicated honey, it is so simple. You take Kif, and if you don't have Kif, you can use plant matter, but it's a little awkward. It's best to use Kif, tumble your cannabis, or just use what's in the bottom of your grinder, and heat it with honey. The good thing about it is it's very quick. I always recommend decarbonizing your Kif before you use it, so you have to put it in the oven at 200 degrees
And
for
that's
4
it.
to
So
5 minutes.
no cooking of honey,
And then
no
just
nothing.
stick your honey and warm it up so that it's all evenly distributed. Just warming up the stove. I put mine in a double broiler. You don't have to. I do just because it's easier for pouring into containers. I'm pouring into multiple containers. But no, you don't. You don't actually have to eat as long as you've put the Kif in. You've activated everything. So you just need to put in the honey, and that's just the way. the form of delivery. So that you can then put in tea, oatmeal, put it on a spoon, whatever you use. Again, some people do use a cheesecloth again and separate the kif from it. I don't see a need for it, but some people do.
That's right,
It's
exactly. Yeah.
preference. I leave it in there. I find
I've
that
heard
it's
with
good medicine.
making
It
honey,
doesn't upset
and there's
stomachs.
always been
Why
concern
take
about
away from
getting it
something
too
that
hot
needs to be taken
when
away
it was
from?
on the stove. But the method that you're talking about seems pretty simple to me.
It's just, it is extremely
Good to
simple.
know. There you
Honey is
go.
one of the
There
easiest
you
things
go.
for someone who's never made anything. If you got 5 minutes in an oven that goes to 200 degrees, you're good to go, basically, and some kip. You're good to go. Now, warming it up again, it does make it distribute
Right.
more evenly in it, but you don't heat it, you don't boil it, you just put it on two, make sure it's warm, and then pour it in your containers. Keep it airtight, though.
Correct.
I
Correct.
recommend keeping in the
Just
fridge. You
before
do
we go
have
next, have
to.
you got any
But with
questions on the
anything that's
honey or the
processed or
butter making?
deprocessed, you should always keep it in the fridge, just for bacterial purposes.
Can you? Okay. I've got a question. What I'm being asked is, can you make the honey into like a okay? How about make a toffee? A candy, toffee, candies. That's basically the question I'm.
Oh yeah, definitely. You can for that a lot of people tend to use you can use Kif. Most toffees don't require honey in the recipe. They do though require corn syrup, which you could also medicate. So you could easily just put that Kif in the corn syrup, heat it up. Obviously, decarbonize the Kif like we talked about earlier. Put it in the corn syrup, and heat it up a bit so it's evenly distributed, not so that it's boiling or hot or for hours, for like 3 minutes. And then you could use that in your recipe. Uh, Almost all toffee I've ever heard of calls for corn syrup. Another way is
Mhm.
to directly sprinkle the on top of it. You will not get the same text, I find, though, if you do it on top, because you lose a lot of it when you're picking it up. But you
Yeah,
will get
yeah,
effects from
yeah.
it. Like you can use honey
I
though
just
in
want to make
anything.
sure
And
we're clear over
Kif is
here with this
a
toffee
wonder
thing.
product or byproduct.
So
And
you
with
would make
butter, which I'm sure you're going to talk to me about later.
butter. So you want to know, can you make toffee? Where? Okay, so can you explain? Do you make a toffee, Amy? Just a soft toffee? Yeah. Caramel. Yep.
Are
Yep.
we
Yep.
talking
Yep.
about hard toffee
Just
or caramel? Caramels? Yeah, those are makeable. Is that what we're talking about? Yeah, can of butter. I mean, all toffee recipes. I thought you were talking
so
about
basic. So
like peanut
basically,
brittle,
any caramel
but that which only
recipe, but
requires
instead
a
of
little bit
using
of
regular
butter. But
butter, you
most
use
caramel
caramel.
recipes call for at least a cup of butter, corn syrup, brown sugar. Anything, any
Right.
recipe that requires regular butter, you can
Does the
stick can of butter on.
recooking
I
of
make
it, if you're
grilled
making
cheeses.
grilled
They're
cheese, does
awesome.
that destroy any of the medicinal benefits, or is it best to try to keep it low again? Yeah.
Keep the heat low. Obviously, you
Yeah.
don't want to
I
blacken
always.
grilled cheese. I know some people that like their grilled cheeses black. Keep it a light golden brown, and you should be fine. Some people also butter both sides of the bread when they
Now,
make grilled cheeses. Um,
something that also
that's
might
another
help
way to
you.
do
Keep,
it. That
I
way,
got
no matter
ladies
what, you
here.
got some that hasn't been burnt. But it's a
Ever
matter
make
of just
chocolate?
keeping the temperatures good. You don't want it
Ever
black. You
make
want it golden. I
can of
haven't found an
chocolates?
issue with it. Actually, before I got into the medical marijuana industry, I had my own business making weird chocolate novelty suckers for bachelorette parties. Yes, you can medicate them.
Hmm.
um, you can use butter. Um, it's just a matter of how much the chocolate will hold. A really good quality
Yeah.
chocolate to hold a lot extra
Now,
fat in it. So starting off with a good quality chocolate works, but definitely you can make medicated chocolates and then stuff it with that medicated caramel and make some crazy creations with it. But
that's
definitely
how I make the
chocolates.
chocolates.
How
Is
I
with the
like to
double
make
boiler,
chocolates is melt
and
the
once you
chocolate,
mix it
put
all
the required
together,
amount of
I
butter I think I
into an
want
ice
in
cube
there,
tray,
stir it, and then
and then
remelt
make
it
little
some more in a double
squares.
boiler. That
Or
way
get
it's all evenly mixed.
yeah, and then you can just eat that just like any other regular chocolate, whether you're going to the
Yeah.
movies or whatever, right? Wherever you need or something before you go to bed, right?
Smart.
It's really easy. Pardon me? Yeah, silicone trays or just the regular plastic ones. Silicone ones, it pops out a lot easier once it hardens. But with
Are you
the
using
hard plastic ice
Are you using
trays, they
silicone
are a little bit
trays?
harder to get out, but it is something that is usable. So I've got a chocolate factory just down the road for me, and I'll go in there and buy bulk
Mm-hmm.
chocolate and melt it down and then mix the butter with it. So correct, yes. So it makes things really, it is a good drink.
That's a good way to do it. Another thing people don't realize, as you're saying, ice cube trays, the dollar stores, like it's not expensive to make your own baked goods. You can go to the dollar store and get these ice cube trays we were just talking about, and they come in really nifty shapes. And it's most of the bad conception about medicating
Right, yeah.
with edibles and
Well,
making your own is that
I
it's
would go
extremely
to
costly.
I would go to
You
the
have a
grocery
startup
store,
fee just to get
buy
the
Duncan
cannabis.
Hines
In order to
cake
actually
mixes.
process
They came
them
with
and make
M&M
things, it's just
candies
like
in them,
making a
and
regular
I would
batch of
once I would
cookies
bake
or a
with them,
chocolate
make the
popsicle or
brownies, I would make
s'mores.
sure the
Medical
M&Ms were on there, and then that way my children knew that M&M stood for medical marijuana, and the kids wouldn't touch my brownies. They would. uh, let's move on to tinctures. Do you have any experience with tinctures?
That's so good. That's a smart idea.
Right.
I have a lot of
Yeah.
experience with tinctures, actually. I became very interested in tinctures just for my own use at first. I've never, I thought they'd be very convenient for when I was at the park. Sometimes baked goods melt, especially like this. Um, so tinctures,
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of. Now, there's a couple different ways again to make tinctures.
Oh, really?
Everyone has their own way. For me personally, I like to get an overproof alcohol. If you have a medical marijuana license, you can write to the liquor store and you can get a prescription for the 98% alcohol, which, yeah, you definitely can. Most people don't know that. And all the sure people are like, haha, look at the money I'm making. No, forget them. Get your own damn prescription. Go to the liquor store or call them. You gotta write a doctor a letter, and
So
then
like a
they'll
whole
issue
grain
you
alcohol?
a certificate that allows you to purchase from the liquor store. Most liquor
Go to the
stores
gas and get
don't
some of that
carry
stuff.
it. You have to go to the bigger ones. They
Go
do.
ahead.
It's about $30. And it's a 98% alcohol, so this has to be
Yeah.
watered down. It is. It's ethyl, I believe it is. I wish I had the bottle on me right here. It's in my kitchen.
Okay.
Yeah, what's the name of it? But it's in a brown bottle, and it's $30 for I believe 100 milliliters, and that's probably the best thing
Right.
to make a tincture with someone who's working on an extremely medicinal
Yeah.
side. All you'd have to do is put it in a jar with cannabis and shake it for a minute or two. Some people leave it for months under the sink,
Mhm.
and I don't. I mean, it just becomes a very green, disgustingly tasting mess. That took
Yeah.
you 3 months to get. If you just shake it up, you're still doing the same thing. The alcohol with the percentage strips the plant right
Yeah.
away, and those are all the components you need. So after 2 minutes, you just strain it out, and ta-da, you can put in an atomizer, which is a sprayer bottle, and that's it. Or you can get an eye dropper. Another way to make it is a little bit easier for most people, especially people who have licenses, is get an of alcohol that you can get over the counter. I like Bacardi. I call it Budcardi. I like Bacardi 151. Ray and Nephew
That's
Overproof.
it.
I find is
Boy,
very
not much,
good. And it's the same
hard work
idea.
involved in that. Now,
You
what about
strip it as
glycerin
well. You
tinctures?
may have to
For
shake it a
somebody
bit
like, for
longer.
example,
Same
myself,
thing though.
I'm
Shake
not
a
have
cheesecloth to
alcohol.
strain it. And the alcohol is
conflict
going
with
to
two
stick
of
to
my
the plant. You really
medications.
got to
So,
squeeze that out.
what about the
And
glycerin?
that's it. Extra tincture. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Glycerin.
Yeah.
I have honestly only ever made it once.
Yeah.
It requires it requires heat. The one when I made it, it required
Yeah.
heating, very, very low temperatures. Same thing. Strain it and use it. I didn't particularly like the glycerin tincture. I didn't like the taste of glycerin. There's lots of people who have alcohol absolutely
Yeah.
adore it, and I
The-
think it's great. Um, and
yeah.
it's
Now
all the
the
same. You
one thing
just
about
heat
the
and
baked
strain.
goods,
Everything
I
is
guess I'm
heating and
sort of a
straining.
bit of an
People are
example.
making
Is
so much
can't do
um,
too many baked goods
selling
because of
baked goods
my
when you could really
Crohn's
do it
and my
yourself. And I
digestive
mean,
system.
I sell baked
And this
goods,
is
and I
why I
tell
sort of
people,
wonder about
make
these
your
other
own.
things like
Like, I'd rather you keep your money.
tinctures as a way
Yeah.
to be used medicinally as well. Correct. Moderation. Yeah. Yeah. Add the honey. What about teas? You have experience
Well,
with teas or
definitely,
oils?
many people with stomach issues can't eat, eat, but very sparingly, so they don't want to be eating a cookie. Exactly, moderation. Tinctures are absolutely wonderful for that. But there's the honey that I spoke about earlier.
Right.
Um, I like teas and oils. Teas, there's a couple of different ways of
Right.
doing it. One, you can get a mesh bag, put cannabis in it, and just steep it for a very long time. You will not get the most potent effects, but you will get
Okay. Yeah.
somewhat
Now
comparable to a
the
tincture.
oils.
Tinctures
Would
make
they
you all light
be
and fuzzy. They
the
don't make
oil
you feel
experience you had? Would that
very
be like I
heavy or
hear people talk about
if you know
coconut
the difference. Yeah, it's
oils?
more of a light and
Um.
tingly. The same goes with that. But huh.
Yeah. Uh,
Coconut oil is great. It has
yeah.
a higher saturated fat, so it's said to absorb more. However, I prefer to work with olive oil, but I have worked with coconut oil. The only thing about coconut oil is at room temperature it becomes solid. So it's a
Right.
little harder to work with than it would be in olive oil. Both have different benefits for your
Yeah.
body without cannabis in
Sticks
them.
to it.
So it's all about
Yeah. What
preference.
about creams?
Coconut
You had
oil,
anything to do with
many
the
people use
creams
in their balms
making
that they make in
things?
the cream cake. I use olive oil still. I find it's nicer on the skin. And it's more it's easier to apply as opposed to a coconut, which is like you're trying to really push into that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I make a cream that we call Amy Anonymous Boo Boo Bomb, and that stuff doesn't just it flies.
Yeah.
It is in such
The
high
the
demand.
the,
I try to tell people how to make comparable
the video
things for
that
themselves. I
one
mean,
video I
really,
watched, you
it's
talked about
medicated oil.
making
Like if you
creams
can
with
medicate olive oil
herbs,
with
and
just
they
the way
talked
you would
about
make
using
butter,
beeswax
at a lower
as
temperature, then you
emulsifier
can
because they
make your
talked
own
about
cream. It's
oil and
medicated oil
was it
and
oil
wax. Like
and
wax and that
water
could be your money. Do it well.
combinations in order to make cream. So they used beeswax as an emulsifier. Yeah, right, right. Yep,
Definitely use beeswax. hmm when you do that, it's if I
yep.
like to make balm. A balm is more like a chapstick, but if you were to make a cream, it's the exact same way as making a balm. You melt the oil and you melt the wax together until and the wax takes a while to melt, so it just happens. I'm getting the small little balls of it too, because that will
Right.
melt quicker. And then you just take a hand beater, electric hand beater, and slowly drizzle water into your oil
Yes,
and waxing and beat the heck out of it. You will get a
right.
very smooth finished cream. Don't dump it in. You got to do it very slowly as you're making.
Yes,
Yeah, Creams are
yeah, like
great.
people
A
have,
lot of people use creams. They're
is it
great for migraine.
psoriasis? There's like psoriasis of the liver, but there's like a
I use it for
psoriasis on the
arthritis.
skin.
People
I
use it
believe
for
yeah,
rosacea,
and they can
many
apply it to
skin
that, or
conditions. I know a woman with stomach
skin
cancer who says it's
cancers.
the only thing she can use. So for
Yeah.
pain, creams are great. Another alternative to smoking. There's so many out there. Gum. Mm-hmm.
It is. It is. What about? I guess you can make
Very
the
much
hemp
hemp oil,
oil as well as
definitely.
combine cannabis with it.
Migraines,
Like
creams
we
or
were
balms are
talking about
great for
oils,
migraines.
canola
I've
oil,
gotten
not
many,
canola oil,
many
olive
testimonials where people rub it on
oil,
their
and
temples,
coconut oil. If you have
and it
access to
relieves their
hemp
migraines.
oil,
So just a little
even
bit
that
of
much
cannabis. I
better.
mean, cannabis is insane. It's a wonder
You know,
plant.
I was hemp oil to use to mix it with cannabis.
Pardon?
No, eh? Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, hemp oil for cancer? Oh, just okay. Hemp oil is also a great alternative. I'm not gonna lie, I've never
Oh,
used hemp oil.
really?
Um,
Eh?
I
Okay,
really
now,
enjoy I really like the results
we
of
just
olive oil.
touched on it briefly
Uh,
there at the beginning.
I have to have a consistent
You
product.
mentioned about
So
butter with
I
two
use an olive
D's.
oil. I find it's fabulous for my skin. It makes my
Right,
skin so
right.
damn soft.
Now, how is
So
that
my
an
wrist is
alternative
like
way of
baby sweat all the
consuming
time.
cannabis?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
well, you can vaporize butter. So I mean, as with cannabis, you can vaporize it. Butter is, I think, the most concentrate form of cannabis you can get. It is extremely intense. So
Oh,
when you
yeah.
vaporize it, you only need the size of a teeny little ball of hash, and that will get you medicated maybe twice. Eating wise, you need to mix it with a fat. You don't, if you eat it just
Gum.
as is, you won't get the same effects. A lot of times you may not get any effects. A lot of times it just sticks to your teeth and you don't even get it in your system. But
Okay.
it's best to mix it with a fat. So yeah, taking butter, mixing it with a fat, so that it can be evenly distributed. Another thing, like I said, I make gum, or I used to make gum,
Yeah.
and that's with you get this product from an endangered tree. I stopped making it because I felt like I was
Yeah.
creating deforestation. But you get a special wax from some tree in California, and then I used to put butter in that, break it up into little pieces, and since it melts and you have to mix it, you then can evenly distribute it. But
Yeah.
butter can be put in candies. The budd butter can also be
Mhm.
put in candies. It can be put in any kind of hard toffee. Some people like to put it, just mix it in with their sauces. So there's a lot of different ways you can use butter. Personally, for me though, vaporizing would be my
Right.
favorite use for butter. Yeah, it's just so quick and
Yeah, because
convenient.
it
The thing
absorbs
about
quicker in your
extracts,
mouth,
though,
right?
is
It absorbs
if you're
quicker
eating a
under your tongue
candy, a
versus
sucker, a
having to
honey,
go
or a
like
gummy, not a
you
hard
mentioned
candy, a gummy,
having to mix it
those
with some
tend to,
fat
you
and that
get effects quicker because you don't have to
it
digest them.
uptakes into your
It's all
system,
absorbed through your mouth. So
correct?
you don't have to, you
Right.
don't have to wait the 45 minutes to
Correct.
an hour. You're about 20 minutes in, you're like,
So
okay.
by going through your tongue, it is a quicker way versus having to digest and have it go
hmm
through your liver and eventually get into your system.
You got to digest it, right? All has to be processed. Much quicker. And as I said, I
Yeah.
find candies and all of those, they tend to at first give you a tingly feeling. So a lot of people don't know what to expect when they know what smoking
Correct.
feels like, but eating is completely
Yeah.
different than smoking. You don't get the same effects immediately, and you
Yeah.
can get, some people's fingers get very tingly, your body feels lighter, you may feel a little airy or dizzy. Usually that's a
Yeah.
sign of eating
Especially
too
for a first
much.
time user.
It's it's a little
I know
complicated with
whenever I've
dosing.
talked
If
to
you
people
don't
about it, I
make your
tell them
own
like a
baked
quarter to a
goods,
half a cookie.
1 baker's gram is completely different to another's baker's gram, which is the same as with any cannabis. So what you think you can only eat 2 gram cookies. If you go somewhere else, that 2 gram cookie may knock you flat on your butt.
Down from it.
Exactly. We recommend, or I recommend a quarter of a gram. I don't recommend starting off with any
Probably.
more. It's nicer to not be as medicated
No,
and work your way through it as it is to
alternatives.
be
Should the material
overwhelmed
be
and have
wet
to
or
work your way
dry?
down from that.
Dry.
Yeah, I mean, you can't die. It's physically impossible to overdose on cannabis, but you can feel very, very lethargic and overwhelmed, probably really hungry. So I always start off small, work your way up.
No. No. No, I haven't. No, the
Dry.
only wet
Just want
cannabis
the
I know
material as dry as
of
possible.
that
I
people
find
use
wet
is in the
material you
juicing
can't absorb as
process,
much from. It usually
where they
hasn't
need it
cured,
to be
so
moist in order to make the juice
you
run.
don't have the
But I
best
didn't know
product
whether
if
there
it's
was
wet. It's
an
not ready if it's
advantage
wet. Just like
in any
smoking, you
other
wouldn't
method,
smoke wet
whether it was
cannabis.
wet or
There's no
dry.
point of cooking with it. Have you used wet cannabis? Yeah.
Maybe. Well, I
Yes,
know
juicing.
the lady here watching the video. We showed about
Yeah,
20 minutes of the juicing, and they were just like just surprised that because they never heard of it before,
I
right?
have not found, but juicing, I've never actually
Carrot.
done.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in
Yeah.
juicing, but I've
Exactly.
never personally juiced myself. I can't. One day, maybe someone will bring me
For
some and try
sure.
it.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah. So how important is it for people to know these alternative methods?
just like a carrot. You can juice a carrot. You can juice some cannabis, right? And the benefits of cannabis outweigh carrots tenfold, right? I think it's extremely important. The problem is most people don't know these alternatives. Doctors don't talk about it. Parents don't really talk about it with their kids. There's a stigma attached. People don't really talk about it with each other. Um, my goal is just to educate as many gosh darn people as I can about them. I mean, the stigma attached to cannabis, a lot of it has to do with smoking. Oh, you're smoking, it's so bad. Well, eating a cookie has so many health
That's
benefits.
right.
It's
Exactly.
far outweighs smoking. It's the most medicinal form of
I'm
cannabis
gonna
or bar or
almost
whatever
to
you're
the end
eating.
here, Amy.
I
Is
just
it
find
right
that
for
most
Health
people
Canada to
don't
not
know
allow
about it. They
smoking
think
methods of
it's very
cannabis?
overwhelming.
There's
Cooking
even this
medicated
new
cookies is
program,
just like cooking
MMPR.
regular cookies,
They're
and
still
everyone knows
not
how to
going to
cook
allow.
regular cookies. I mean, like I said, if you can make toast with butter, you can make
Correct.
medicated.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, because it has to be, even though it was defeated in BC, it still has to be defeated
That breaks
here in
my heart. In
Ontario in
BC,
order
they
for
allow
it
it.
to be included in us. Now, I do know that
It's a
that is
provincial
going to
thing.
be part
However,
of the
Ontario,
lawsuit
no
that
one's been
Jason
charged,
Wilcox and
and
John
no one's
Conroy and a bunch of others
no
are
one's had to
working
be in
on in
court to
order
fight
to
this yet.
have that go all the way
It
across
was
Canada, not just to BC. Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
which I think they're doing
No,
fantastic work.
and
I've read a
Health
lot about
Canada
what
has
they're
all
doing.
that
I think
information. They're all
it's
against the
sad that
smoking
Health
methods
Canada
and
doesn't recognize
smoking
eating
shouldn't be
cannabis
done
as a
this
form
and
of
smoke
medicine,
this
and
and
they
smoke
choose
that.
to
But
permit
yet,
smoking.
when we
I mean,
offer
as
them
Health
the alternative way of
Canada,
consuming it,
wouldn't you
they turn it
assume
down.
that you would
It
want
just
to
doesn't seem
have?
right to me.
I don't get it. I'm not going to stop doing what I'm doing. I'm not scared of Health Canada. Uh,
Okay.
they're on an alternative agenda. I mean, Health Canada. I don't think anything about them is really right. They are taking away rights of patients,
No,
putting
yeah.
them in the hands of of pardon my French, bigwig
What's
profiteers
next?
who are now going to profit off of all the sick people. They're going to set the rate. They're going to set the going rate, much like dispensaries did. But
Yeah,
now
exactly,
it's going to be all
exactly.
done through the government. So you may see prices go up. You may see $15 grams. We don't know yet, and it's sad because we
Yeah,
have
yeah. It
over
just takes people to
10,000
get
people who are
out
sitting
into
here in the
the
dark, just
public
going, what
to
next?
make it
And that's just the licensed
more
people,
socially
let alone the
acceptable.
thousands and thousands of people who
Yeah,
don't have a
yeah, yeah,
license and still
exactly.
use cannabis. They have no doctor. But I think it will change. I think it will change because someone like you or me or John Conroy
It
and
does.
everyone, it's going to happen. It
Okay,
will happen.
Amy. We're we're getting close to closing time here, so at this moment, I'd like to say thank you to you, Amy, for
That's
taking
the
your time
thing,
to
socially
educate everyone
acceptable.
on the
We got to do
alternative
that. But
ways of
as a
using
team, I mean,
cannabis.
our
And
community
I'd
is
also like to
so
thank
well at
the
putting the
store
word out
owners here
there.
at the Carpe Diem Cafe in Peterborough,
Our community does
Marina and
great for
Richard,
our cause. It's
for
fantastic.
allowing us to do this,
It's just like
and
we're
for everybody on
it.
YouTube that's going to catch us. Thank you all for being people advocating cannabis education. Thank you. Bye, bye, Amy. You're welcome. Talk to you soon.